Hey, I'm Lisa, and welcome to everything you need to know about buying a house in Italy. This is the house that my best friend and I recently bought in Piedmont, in northern Italy. It's a 6,000 square foot cascina, a country house with additional barns and outbuildings and two cavernous wine cellars. We bought it for 170,000 euros, or about 190,000 US dollars at the time. We have two large wells for our own water supply and 8 acres of land. From our courtyard, we have a view of several quintessential hilltop towns, all within a 5 to 15-minute drive. We are somewhat rural, but also conveniently located close to small and major cities. Piedmont is a region famous for its wines, cheeses, rare white truffles, and it is the home of the slow food movement. Our house is located in an incredibly idyllic area called Monferrato. Here, the landscape consists of hilltop towns and castles, of rolling fields and dense forests, of family-run vineyards and small farms. Much of the area has remained unchanged for centuries. It's these rare characteristics that have earned Monferrato a UNESCO World Heritage designation. This protects it from commercial and industrial development for centuries to come. Monferrato has a very robust local economy. The weekly farmers markets are always bustling with the local inhabitants and brimming with amazing fruits, vegetables, and artisanal products. Everything we eat is grown within a 50-mile radius. Everywhere you turn, there's nature and beauty and history and community. It's our own little slice of paradise. It's Italy. In this series, we hope to cover all of the information you need to know about buying a house in Italy. We share this information freely as our business is providing personalized house finder services for Americans who want to buy here and who want to save money on the house finding process. We are not real estate agents. We are house finders, because buying a house in Italy is relatively easy, but finding a house in Italy can be very, very difficult. You can find much more information about our services at our website at www.housefindersnorthernitaly.com. Sometime around 2015, my best friend and I decided that we wanted to change our lives in a big way. We wanted to ramp everything down, to have less stress, and to live a life closer to nature. But above all, we wanted to substantially reduce our monthly financial requirements. When we sat down and did a simple calculation of our basic monthly living costs, the amount was kind of upsetting. We were each paying out nearly $5,000 per month, $60,000 per year per person off the top, just in basic living expenses. Now, we aren't extravagant people. It was our high rent and mortgage payments that were gobbling up an inordinate amount of our income. And as we weren't getting any younger, there was always that gnawing question at the back of our minds. Would we be able to sustain these high housing payments if and when our incomes start to decrease? We decided that if we really wanted to have peace of mind about our financial future, we had to eliminate housing costs as part of our monthly budget. So we researched and discussed our options and came up with two scenarios: pool our capital and pay cash for a tiny house in a less desirable location in California, where we would have to commute to work, or buy our dream house in Italy. So here I am enjoying a very happy life in my dream house in Italy, and my living expenses are about $750 a month. By moving and converting my capital assets from the U.S. to Italy, I was able to eliminate my biggest worries and financial burdens. Obviously, we didn't move overnight. The first thing we knew we had to do was to find the area that we wanted to live in. We started coming here for weeks at a time, traversing the country from east to west and north to south. We had absolutely no idea where we wanted to settle, but we knew that we wanted to live in an area that was classically Italian, with undeveloped and unadulterated historic towns. An area with quaint small cities as well as historically important large cities nearby. A place with interesting and sophisticated people. We wanted an abundance of natural beauty, a temperate climate zone, and most importantly, an area with a well-developed local economy. And eventually, we found our spot. Monferrato is a highly unspoiled, undeveloped, protected UNESCO World Heritage Area in Piemonte, in northern Italy, an hour or so drive from some of Italy's best cities and places: Turin, Milan, Genoa, Portofino, Cinque Terre, the Italian Riviera, Lake Como, the Alps. Location, location, location. I can't stress this consideration enough. Location first, house second. You can find 100 houses online that look absolutely perfect, but are located in less than perfect environments. Many towns have beautiful historic centers that are unfortunately surrounded by factories, outdated commercial buildings, and concrete mini-malls. There is the picturesque Italy that everyone knows and dreams of, but much of the country was rebuilt after the war in the 50s, or redeveloped in the 70s, and the ugly, brutalist, slap-it-up architecture remains. I really want to cover as much information as possible, so right off the bat, I'm going to address the most frequently asked questions about buying a house in Italy. FAQ number 1. How much does it cost to buy a house in Italy? So that I don't under or overstate the cost of things due to currency fluctuations, the house prices that I quote throughout this video are in euros. Over the past year, the euro has been floating between 1.1 and 1.2 times the dollar. So at those rates, 1,000 euros equates to between $1,100 and $1,200. 1 square meter equals about 11 square feet. So a 300 square meter house is just under 3,300 square feet. Here are just a few of my favorite pre-1920 houses that are currently on the market, with list prices in euros and size in square meters. Like everywhere, houses in the large and popular areas of Italy are expensive. Decent apartments in the historic centers of Rome, Venice, Florence, and tourist spots like Lake Como, for example, start at about $1 million. Houses in the smaller cities and the not-so-famous regions come with price tags very comparable to the U.S. But where Italy offers the really great pricing opportunities is in the small towns, villages, and in the country. Homes in these areas are insanely inexpensive. You can absolutely find an incredible house or apartment that needs no renovation in a desirable area for under 80,000 euro. And it doesn't mean you have to buy a dilapidated fixer-upper located in the middle of nowhere. How can I save money on the process? The number one way for you to save the most amount of money, and I'm talking thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours of your time, is to hire a house finder. Now bear with me. This might sound like a bit of a sales pitch, but hear me out. There are many ways that a house finder can save you money, but the number one way is by cutting down on the number of transatlantic trips that you will need to take. Besides the actual house, these trips will be the biggest expense you'll incur. When we were searching, we made 12 trips over 3 years, and we spent $30,000 in accommodations and travel, streamlining the online search process. In Italy, there are no centralized listing websites like MLS or Zillow in the United States. You have to look at all of the local realtors' websites to see all of the houses that are available in any particular area. And the listings are not as detailed or helpful as you would expect. The photos are often of poor quality, dark, out of focus. A lot of times there are only a few photos of a few of the rooms. It is not at all uncommon for listings to include 5 photos of the kitchen and 0 photos of the bedrooms. Here is a typical search on one Italian real estate listing website. This site has an English language portal. Let's search in the region of Piedmont. We'll do a maximum price of 500,000 euros, a minimum of 3 bedrooms, and any property type. So we have over 1,000 results. For me, one of the biggest frustrations is that I have never found an Italian listing website where you can search by the year built. In fact, most of the listings don't even include the year built in the details. So you have to wade through all of these results, looking at each listing to drill down to a fraction of the listings that are the classically Italian pre-1920s houses. So let's look at the first featured listing. It's 250 square meters, or just under 3,000 square feet, with 7 bedrooms for 100,000 euros. Let's scroll down to see the details. Partially restored. This usually means they did a 1970s redo of the kitchen and bathroom and put wood paneling on a lot of the walls. Some details about the area. Let's look at the photos. We have an exterior cover shot. Here's a photo of the inside, a dining room, a few exterior shots, a sitting room. Here's one of the staircase, and the carpet on a different section of the staircase. Here's a shot of the ceiling, definitely not original, but I would wager that what's above it is fabulous. Not sure what this is, maybe a converted church across the street. A layout drawing, aerial location, view of the town, several more layout drawings. So 17 photos of this featured property. There's 5 of the interior. 2 of those are close-ups of a staircase. 1 is a blurry photo of a ceiling. And there are no photos of the kitchen or the bedrooms. And this is absolutely typical. Waiting through these listings is incredibly tedious and time-consuming. When we were looking, we spent 100% of our free time searching thousands of listings on hundreds of Italian real estate websites. But a house finder can do the grunt work, can wade through all the clutter, can do the reconnaissance, can go to the houses and check them out and get additional photos or videos, and they can give you an unbiased first-hand account and opinion of the house, the neighborhood, and the geographical location. In Italy, there are no buyer's agents. There are only sales agents. When you are looking to buy a house, you have to contact all of the separate agents that represent all of the houses that you are interested in. Believe me, this is the biggest obstacle to finding a house in Italy. House finders are invaluable in contacting, in managing the information from, and in juggling the schedules of the multitudes of sales agents that a buyer needs to correspond with. House finders know about properties that are for sale privately, that do not have sales agents. Many owners are keen to sell their property privately because it saves 3 to 5% for the seller. House finders are experienced and savvy in the Italian bidding and negotiating process. Buying in a market as a foreigner or a foreigner who does not speak the language starts you off at quite a disadvantage. Establishing the upper hand is much easier for a representative here who knows the market, the comps, the assumed discounts, and the status of the houses. It was through our experience, after spending 3 years and tens of thousands of dollars searching, that we realized the serious need for Americans looking to buy a house in Italy. If only we had had somebody here, a representative on the ground in Italy, someone who knew and took very seriously our criteria, the kind of house, the kind of neighborhood, the kind of location and environment that we were looking for. If only we had had someone who could streamline the online search process and funnel to us only the houses that met our criteria, check out in person the houses and the neighborhoods that we were interested in, and be the liaison to all of the different sales agents, we could have saved thousands of dollars in airfare and lodging and travel and hundreds of hours of our precious time. Can I get a loan to buy a house in Italy? Yes, even as a non-resident, but you will need to get the loan through an Italian bank, and the house has to be listed as habitable and generally in good condition. Italian banks will loan up to 70% of the price depending on your financial condition, but expect to pay higher interest rates. As with everything in Italy, there is a lot of paperwork, there are requirements and restrictions, and the borrowing steps can move slowly. If you can pay cash, the process is a whole lot easier. That said, lease-to-own agreements are becoming more and more popular, whereby the buyer signs a long-term lease, usually for the remainder of the mortgage term, and at the end of the term, the deed is transferred from the owner to that buyer. What are the taxes and fees I have to pay upon purchasing a house? Of course, there are always varying factors, but here is a good general guideline. This example is based on a house that sells for €250,000, and it doesn't include optional costs like a geometra or an architect or a lawyer, costs that I'll discuss later. The registration tax. This is the one-time sales tax that you pay when you purchase the house. If you are a non-resident, this tax is 10% of the state-determined value of the house. This is a value that is usually lower than the selling price. If you are a resident, this tax is 4%, and if you buy a luxury house, this tax is 20%. Various state and local fees are a few €100. The agent fee. The fee that the buyer pays to the sales agent is 3 to 5% of the sales price. The seller also pays 3 to 5% to the sales agent. This fee is usually paid after the signing of the deed, but establish the percentage up front before you give the offer. Notaio fees. The notaio is a cross between a lawyer, title company, and notary public, and it is someone who the buyer must hire. Among other duties, the notaio clears title and draws up the deed. Notaio fees generally range from 1 to 2%, and it's payable when you sign the deed. So, for a €250,000 house, for a non-resident purchase through an agent, which is the most common sale for Americans, the total with mandatory fees and taxes would be approximately €290,000. How long does the process take? Once you've found the house and your bid is accepted, the minimum amount of time is 6 to 8 weeks. Do I have to be present in Italy to buy a house? No. You can appoint a power of attorney to sign the sale contract and to represent you for the signing of the deed of sale, which must take place in Italy. Do I need to move to Italy to own a house there? No. Americans can absolutely buy a property in Italy without moving here. You can be in Italy for 6 months out of the year without a visa, staying any 90 days out of any consecutive 180 days, with 90 days in between stays. If you want to move here, well, that's quite an involved process, and one that we discuss in detail in our other video series, Everything You Need to Know About Moving to Italy. If you do move here and become a resident, you don't pay any annual property taxes on your primary residence. There are property taxes on land, but in most cases they were very low. We own 8 acres of land and our property taxes are less than $250 a year. What if I want to buy a property and rent it out for part of the year? Of course, this is absolutely possible and quite easy to do on any of the online rental services. The summer months bring robust tourism throughout Italy, even in the smaller villages and countryside. It's best to hire a manager to oversee the arrival and departure of guests, the cleaning and upkeep duties, maintenance issues, etc. We happily and expertly provide this service in the Piedmont area. How much does it cost to restore or renovate a house? Well, this depends, of course, if you want a basic Italian country house or the Ducale Palace. Many realtors quote an average cost of €1,200 per square meter for total all-in restoration, including plans, permitting, plumbing, heating, electrical, appliances, floors, windows, walls. At that budget, a 300 square meter house would cost €360,000 to renovate, or about $420,000. But don't panic, because that is a tip-to-toe redo. Every wall, every floor, pretty much every inch redone, recovered, brand new. And who wants that? Most clients want to find and buy a house here that retains original Italian elements. Here are some examples of these fabulous original Italian elements. Stone or plaster walls on the exterior and interior, stone terrazzo or terracotta floors, frescoed ceilings, wood beams, carved wood or plaster moldings, old wood doors and windows, wrought iron details. Whether maintained or restored, many of these cost toward the Ducale Palace end of the budget. My restoration was at the other end of the budget scale, the basic country house. I have 300 square meters in my half of the house, and I spent just under €50,000 for renovations. That is €160 per square meter. But please know that I'm a frugal person. I'm not cheap. I renovated using only original reclaimed elements, and these are always more expensive to buy and install than new materials. But I am frugal, and to save money, I did as much of the work myself as I could, and luckily I didn't have to or want to do anything structural. I didn't need to hire an architect or a contractor. My biggest expense was the muratore, because the walls and ceilings in all of my rooms were in fairly bad shape. So depending on how you want to do it, consider that renovation costs could range anywhere from my cost of $160 per square meter, which I would consider the minimum. Frugal persons, do many of the things yourself, keep as many original elements as possible budget, to $1,200 per square meter for a tip-to-toe redo that probably includes some work by an architect or a geometra. My frugal, limited, but quality, highly controlled restoration process entailed: I hired a muratore to remove the concrete from and sandblast the original stone walls in my office, my cozy room, and a bedroom. A muratore is a bricklayer, stonemason, plasterer, and wall person who sometimes can do a little electrical, plumbing, and heating. If you buy an old stone house, your muratore will probably become your best friend for at least a month or so. I hired a plumber to install a new kitchen sink and replace the kitchen plumbing and drain, which was clogged to the main line with tree roots. I chiseled off the 1970s ceramic kitchen tiles, bought reclaimed cement tiles, and installed them myself for the kitchen backsplash. I hired an electrician to redo all of my electrical wiring, which was not grounded and could not handle a toaster and a water kettle at the same time. I had 2 enclosed fireplaces and a pellet stove installed, and this created warm zones where I am perfectly comfortable all winter long. I chose not to put in any kind of centralized heating system, as it would have been prohibitively expensive to install and to run in this large house. I prepped the walls and the ceilings in my living room, dining room, and kitchen, then hired a muratore to fix and replaster them with Italian plaster. I bought reclaimed terracotta tiles and had them installed on top of the existing 1970s ceramic tile kitchen floor. I bought reclaimed maplewood floors and installed them myself in my living and dining rooms. Everyone advised me to get all new double insulated doors and windows, but I did a lot of research and decided to keep the originals, which are made from prized Italian chestnut and oak hardwoods. Everything I did because I wanted my house to look like I live in Italy. I wanted it to look like it was an original country house. A few words about heating. Italy is officially located in the temperate zone, and outside of the higher elevations, the temperatures are fairly consistent throughout the country. It gets hot in the summer and cold in the winter. In the summertime, the old stone houses stay deliciously cool inside, day and night, with no need for air conditioning. Even when it's 100 degrees outside, I walk into my house into a blast of cold air. But those same stone walls keep the cold air in the wintertime, and heating is a very important factor, especially in these huge old houses with large rooms and high ceilings. I could do an hour video just on the subject of heating your pre-1920s Italian house, and it's definitely a factor to consider when buying. So, with the purchase and the renovations, my total investment in my half of the house was just under €140,000. But this doesn't include any work or renovations on the outbuildings, the barns, the wine cellars, etc. That's the next phase in our Italian adventure. Do I need to hire a lawyer when buying a house in Italy? The simple answer is no. You do not need a lawyer. Some people are more comfortable hiring a lawyer, some people are not. And buying a house in Italy is a fairly easy process. It's pretty much of a what you see is what you get situation. A cash buyer can buy a house in any condition, habitable or uninhabitable, not up to code, crumbling, or even dangerous. The seller is lawfully obliged to do three things: provide an energy efficiency rating document, disclose that the property has or does not have a habitability certificate, and disclose if the house does not conform to the house plans on file with the local planning agency. As part of the buying process, the buyer receives a copy of the house plans that are on file with the local officials. If the plans don't conform with the existing house, for instance, if there's a kitchen and bathroom where the plans still show a barn, then this could pose serious and expensive problems for the buyer in the future. Local officials get very prickly, fee-happy, and slow-moving when they discover that alterations were made without plans, and they don't care whose jurisdiction it happened under. Now, a prudent seller would want to conform these differences, and a prudent buyer might want to hire a person called a geometra to confirm the plan conformity before signing the deed. A geometra is like a house inspector in the U.S., but performs many other important functions, which I'll discuss a little later. The other area that could put a wrench in the buying process is title clearance, but again, the onus is on the seller to rectify any problems. Title clearance is a job that is done very thoroughly here in Italy by a person called a notaio. The notaio performs duties similar to those of a lawyer, title company, and notary all rolled into one. And while the notaio represents both the buyer and the seller, they are always hired by the buyer, and they particularly protect the buyer, who is considered the weaker party. If the notaio finds that the title is not free and clear, the seller is responsible for taking the steps and paying the fees necessary before the sale can be finalized. What kinds of houses can you expect to find in Italy? You can find classically Italian houses that date back a century or more and generally need a little to a lot of TLC. Early 20th century houses, which are also classically Italian in style and architecture, and were built with a modest amount of plumbing and electrical. There are post-war houses with brutalist architecture, 70s houses, which some refer to as the decade that taste forgot, and newer construction, which is mostly template-style structures with a few Italian flourishes added. There are not a lot of mid-century modern or modernist houses in Italy. We specialize in finding pre-1920s houses, which are abundant in Piedmont, including farmhouses, country houses, palazzos, villas, and castles. Those are our favorite kind of houses, classically Italian, because if you're going to buy a house in Italy, you want it to look like a house in Italy. touched on before, Italian banks will give loans to non-residents for up to 70% of the purchase price. Since everyone's financial situation is unique, I'm going to speak about the buying process assuming you already have the financing, or you will pay cash for your house. Bidding. As with anywhere, the bidding process is depending on whether it's a buyer's or a seller's market, as well as the urgency of the seller. In this area of not yet famous Italy, it's definitely a buyer's market. Houses move slowly here. I know of many that have been on the market since I started looking, for 6 years or more. We bid €170,000 on our house that was listed for $200,000, and the bid was immediately accepted. To submit a bid, you give an informal verbal or written offer to the agent or owner. This informal offer is accepted or negotiated or rejected. Once the offer is accepted, the seller may provide you with something called a proposta, a written formal offer agreement. Both parties sign the proposta, and at this point, the buyer is often asked to make a good faith deposit, usually about 1%. We didn't do this step. We emailed our offer, the owner accepted, and then we went straight to the next step, which is the contract, also known as the compromesso. This is a legally binding contract drawn up by the real estate agent that commits both parties to the terms and conditions agreed to. It stipulates the main details of the transaction and specifies a future date whereby both parties agree to meet for the signing of the deed of sale. At this stage, a deposit of at least 10% must be made. This deposit is non-refundable for the buyer and double refundable for the seller if the seller pulls out or if there are title problems that prohibit the sale. The buyer then engages a notaio to conduct the title clearance and other legal formalities. There are no house inspections required in Italy, and as such, so long as neither party pulls out, the only way the deal can be stopped or halted at this point is if the notaio comes to a standstill in clearing title. On the agreed-upon date, the meeting for the signing of the deed of sale is done at the notaio's office with both parties present. Again, the buyer can grant another party power of attorney to attend. At this meeting, the notaio reads the deed, every word, in Italian. If the buyer does not speak Italian, the notaio must arrange for a translator at the buyer's expense. By this point, all monies due between buyer and seller and notaio would have been paid. After the reading, all parties sign the deed, the notaio adds their seal, and the buyer is the new owner. The closing process, from the acceptance of an offer to the deed signing, usually takes about a minimum of 6 weeks, but it can be longer if the buyer requests more time. We ask that our deed signing be scheduled for 4 months after our offer, because in that period, I sold my business, my friend sold his house, we packed all of our belongings in a container, and we moved to Italy. As I mentioned briefly before, the other person who is optional for the buyer, but could be important in the process, is the geometra. A geometra is a surveyor, inspector, contractor, and a junior architect rolled into one. The main reasons to hire a geometra are to get an upfront professional opinion on the conformity of the house to the plans on file with local officials, to get an opinion on the structure and soundness of the house, to get an estimate of the costs to repair or renovate, and to get an estimate of the cost to bring the house up to code. If you want to buy a house no matter the condition, you might elect not to hire a geometra prior to buying. Many older houses have scary electrical wiring, no functioning heating systems, and scant plumbing. We had extension cord lighting running through many of our rooms. Our kitchen had only a cold water pipe, and the house had no heating other than open fireplaces. But the foundation was extremely sound. It was built with 12 to 24-inch stone walls. The floors and ceilings were previously reinforced with iron bars, and the roof was relatively new. As it had no structural problems, we did not hire a geometra. A geometra can also be the person who is your contractor for work done after the purchase. If you plan to do major renovation or restoration, find a recommended geometra to manage the job, one who knows the local area, builders, and workers. Trying to find plumbing, heating, and electrical contractors and to supervise them and have them all working at the same time toward a common goal is quite a feat here in Italy, especially for first-timers and non-fluent speakers. Having someone who is on good terms with the local bureaucrats can also be a huge advantage. They can get plans through in a week that could take you months or even years. If you are doing plan or structural changes or renovations, by all means hire a geometra or an architect. If you try to do anything without submitting proper plans, the city or commune will catch up to you and will make your life difficult. Okay, to wrap it up, for many, many reasons, finding the right location in Italy and then finding the right house to buy is a major and often difficult endeavor. If you are conducting that search from the U.S., it is even harder. Let us be your Italian-speaking representative here, on the ground in Italy, who knows your criteria and takes very seriously the type of house and environment you are looking for. Our annual fee is less than the cost of one trip here for 2 people, and we can save you many times that amount by working for you here to find you the Italian house of your dreams. This is the personal representation that we provide with our concierge service. For more info, check us out at our website, www.housefindersnorthernitaly.com. And if you're interested in information on how to move to Italy, check out our video entitled Moving to Italy. Everything you need to know. Buona giornata and arrivederci.